First of all, I want to thank everybody who read wonderful essays this evening, and really appreciate that. It always is very exciting for me to hear what people in the communities that I'm visiting have to say and what their core beliefs are. I know we've already been here for quite a while, but I'd be happy to answer some questions if any of you happen to have them. But this is really important. The fire marshal has said you need to line up in an orderly fashion in either of the two aisles. No pushing, no shoving, no stage diving, absolutely no stage diving. So yes, we have, it always requires somebody to break the ice.
Someone's got to do it.
And maybe you can identify yourself and you know, your role here tonight.
Yes, my name is Meg Karski-Wilson, and I'm a parent of 2 middle schoolers as well as several elementary schoolers. So I was wondering, beyond, besides God, which I'm sure is a common subject, what are some of like the other 3, 4, 5 top topics that you hear from people about?
Well, that's a great question, and one that I don't normally get. So, you know, one of the things that I love is everywhere I travel, I ask, you know, I open it up for questions, and invariably somebody in every single venue I ever speak at has a question that hasn't been asked before. And strangely, that's one of the questions that hasn't been asked. Actually, religious belief is not at the top of the list. I'd say it's somewhere down maybe 9 or 10. I'd say in the top 5, and I know this because when we got ready, we did speaking of New Jersey, we've done 4 books with John Wiley, which is based up in Hoboken, and they specifically wanted to do thematically oriented books. And they asked us, what are the most popular topics people write about, and what are the most popular topics people want to read essays about on your website? And luckily we had both of those you know, metrics that we'd been paying attention to. So, number 1, love. Number 1 is love, in all of its permutations. Romantic love, familial love, love of humanity, love of country, you know, all the different permutations of love. Second is probably family. Various family relationships, children writing about their parents, parents writing about their children, etc. Which is why the first book we published was This I Believe on Love. The second book we published was This I Believe on Fatherhood. Then we published the Life Lessons book, and then our last book that we published in this series was This I Believe on Motherhood. So an enormous number of essays written about family, women writing about the experience of being a mother, men writing about the experience of being a father. Those are by far the top of the list. Then, strangely enough, sports. Okay? I can't tell you the number of essays we have that are heartfelt essays about the Cubs, the Phillies, the Red Sox, from Boston, the Yankees, you know, or, you know, the Bears, the Steelers, etc. The Eagles, maybe, you know. And some of them are really heartfelt stories, kind of like the one that we just heard about field hockey, about sort of the camaraderie and of being one of a group that's all rooting for the same thing. So there's a subtext beyond that, and that's sort of community. A lot of people write about their community, whether that's this kind of community or their faith community, or you know, even a work community. So there's a lot of essays about that. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Dave Jones. I'm Thomas's father. I heard that you followed some people through their lives. You interviewed them earlier and later. And I'm curious, did you notice that anybody's belief systems had changed dramatically, or the topics that they focused on?
These are awesome questions. I started to tell this story earlier. The young woman that we heard, the 16-year-old student back in the 50s, I invited her to write a new essay in 2003. And she did, and it was really fascinating for her and for us because she no longer had a copy of the essay that she wrote back in the 50s. She hadn't heard herself, but since then, and she hadn't read what she'd written. And so I asked her to write a new essay without reading what she did before. And what's amazing is how much they echo the same. She basically agreed with herself. And she was still a spiritual seeker, and she wrote a very moving essay about living in Manhattan around 9/11, and that she hadn't been to any form of church for 50 or so years, and she felt the intense need to be in a community of people and talk about what she was experiencing. And in her case, she went to a Unitarian church in New York. That's one dramatic example where we've had people many years apart writing these essays. There's actually a fellow here in New Jersey that's done that same exercise, and he's in a unique position. He is the son of the man who created this, I believe, and he lives not far from here, actually. His name's Keith Wheelock, and he wrote an essay when he was a young man back in the 1950s, and then he has since taught this in a local community college. And so periodically he has written a new essay just to sort of keep connected to his father's legacy. An interesting thing, and I was sharing this on the ride here, because this has been used so widely in schools of all kinds, it's being used in the upper grades of elementary school, widely used in middle school and high school and colleges, graduate programs, adult ed programs, senior programs. We've had at least 2 interns work for us in the summer who are college interns who have told us just out of the blue, that they had to write an essay in middle school, they had to write an essay in college, and now they've written an essay in, middle school, high school, and college. So increasingly, when I travel to colleges, I ask students, how many of you had to do this when you were in high school? Half the students' hands go up. How many of you had to do it in middle school? Another bunch go up. And so it's not even weird anymore when people come to me and say they've done it 3 times. I have not yet made a study of looking at those sort of longitudinal essays. I have an email correspondence going right now with a social scientist at a university who is interested in studying we have almost 150,000 essays that have been submitted to us by people all over the world. And there are a lot of sociologists and psychologists and other humanists that are interested in studying these essays to see what they have to say about our society. And so that's actually right there. That would be a wonderful research project for some budding scholar to study, because there's got to be hundreds of essays at minimum in our database that are written many years apart by the same person. So it's a fascinating idea. Yes, sir. We'll do this for a few more minutes, and then I'll be happy to meet you out in the lobby and sign books and talk to you one-on-one. Yes, sir.
There's 2 items. I'd like you to talk about nominal believers. And that's where, you probably have seen this, where some kids are watching TV and knock, there's a knock on the door, and some missionary comes to the door and the kid says, "Hey, Mom, well, what do we believe about this?" Or "What do we believe about that?" And that's where people claim to be Catholics or Protestants, Jewish, Muslims, atheists even, and yet can't define what they believe. The other thing is, I was talking to my son along a similar line about this whole idea of belief and what beliefs are and all that. And I said, in the 4th century, the Christians got together. We actually used that word, a person's creed or credo, because we talked about how Constantine came to power and he got rid of his rival Maxentius and became the first unified Roman emperor. And then he said, wait a minute, the empire's now united, we got to get together on this belief stuff. So he says, okay, all you knuckleheads from Rome and Constantinople, you're all going to come together here in Nicaea, and you're going to agree on what you believe.
Right.
And of course they said, wait a minute, how can we agree on what we believe? We don't necessarily believe the same things. He said, no, you don't understand. We're going to have unity here in the empire, and we are going to write a document that says what we all believe.
Right.
And that is called to this day the Nicene Creed, which says Credo in unum Deum, I believe in one God. So can you talk a little bit about this nominal belief thing, and then this idea that somehow there are forces that would try to get us to all believe the same things?
That's a mouthful. We could be here for an hour. And I love engaging in these kinds of conversations. I'll try to answer the first part by saying that one of the things that we have several different tools that we offer to different groups of people, especially teachers, to inspire their students to think hard about what they really believe, okay? And one of the things that we ask people to do, and I conduct workshops regularly on how to, the end result is to write a This I Believe essay. And here's what I ask people. I said, don't just out of the blue think of a thing that you believe in and write about it. Instead, I ask people to start by looking at critical moments in their life. Usually these sort of liminal moments that, like the birth of a child, the death of a parent, a car wreck, losing a job, getting ill, or someone close to you getting ill. These are the things where sort of the rubber hits the road in your life. And I ask people to come up with 3 of those type of events. And then I say, for each of those 3 events, what's a belief that grew out of that, or was tested by that, or changed by that, okay? So here's a perfect example. Okay, this is sort of a glib example, but it's a decent one. Somebody might mouth the words that they believe in honesty. Okay, honesty is like their most important core belief. And then someone they love commits a crime. Maybe not a big crime. Maybe it's just, they know that they lied about something important. Maybe they're cheating on their spouse and this person knows about it. Well, now you've got quite a dilemma. Which of these core beliefs is more important to me? Loyalty to my friend or honesty? Okay, how do I choose between those? Which of them is truly the most operative belief? You bring up religion. I mean, there are lots of people who are nominal churchgoers or shul goers or mosque goers, and who have been raised in a certain tradition, and they just sort of go along with it because that's how their family worshipped. There's been lots and lots and lots of research done on political beliefs, and the vast majority of people, if you were raised in a Republican family, vote Republican. If you were raised in a Democratic family, you vote Democrat. They are outliers who go against that, but the vast majority of people do what they were raised to do. And so the question is, do you really believe that in your heart of hearts, or is it just the most convenient thing to do? One of the most haunting essays that was written back in the 1950s that got me really interested in doing this project was an essay written by a man who was a business leader of the time. And this is the kind of essay I can't imagine a prominent business leader writing today, okay? But here's what he said. He said, I've thought deeply about this assignment. What do you believe? I don't know. Every belief that I have, when I really examine it, it's not my belief. This belief is my father's belief. That belief is my mother's belief. That belief was my coach's belief. That belief was my English teacher's belief. That belief was my pastor's belief. And I don't really know, I can't think of an authentic one that originated with my own experience. Okay, so what I generally ask people to do and I'll mention another essay from our contemporary series that's in our second book, This I Believe Too, that has haunted me in a similar way. It's written by Sister Helen Prejean. Some of you may know the book and the movie Dead Man Walking. That's her story. She's a Catholic nun. And what she wrote about is this. She said, you're asking the wrong question. Don't ask what I profess to believe. Ask what I do. Follow me around for a week. Take notes. See how I treat people. She said, my faith has a creed attached to it, okay? I can tell you what I'm supposed to believe as a nun, what I profess to believe as a nun. But I may turn around and treat the other nuns, you know, in a crappy way, you know, and be mean and be vindictive and be selfish and be all these things Jesus said don't do, but I'll do them because I'm human. So ask me, how good am I at following this creed that I espouse? It's much more important to ask me, what do I do? And so I would say, to answer your question, that and I'm actually going to talk to the students about this tomorrow to some degree, is once you've written an essay, it's almost like you've written a mission statement. If you're in business or any organization that's ever had to write a mission statement, it's a very aspirational kind of a document, or, you know, a couple of sentences. It's what you want the company to be, what you want the organization to be, not necessarily a definition of what is. Okay, it's aspirational usually. So this I believe essays are often aspirational. Okay, this is at my best what I wish to believe, not necessarily a document of what I believe. Not everybody, but a large number of people, I think that's true. And finally, to answer the second part of your question, and at the risk of keeping you here all night, I would venture to say, my editorial commentary here, not representing the views of this I believe as an organization, more harm has come in this world from groups of people espousing identical beliefs and being willing to die for them. Especially that my religion is the right religion and your religion is the wrong religion. My political beliefs are right and yours are wrong. And there's nothing to be done about it other than I kill you. There's a wonderful essay in our first book written by a journalist from Northern Ohio, and it's called In Praise of the Wobblies. And by wobbly, he means people who are just kind of in the middle. He said, my whole life I've been put down for not being more decisive about my beliefs, political beliefs, religious beliefs, you know, moral, ethical beliefs. He said, I've seen nothing but bad things happen in our world from people who are absolutely 100% clear on what they believe, because that invariably means they're 100% clear that you're wrong for believing that thing. So he said, I'm happy to be in the middle, you know, and kind of see your point, and kind of see your point, and realize you're a good person regardless of what you're, and you're a good person, you know, and you know, moral relativism has taken on a very negative connotation, you know, that, well, you know, if everybody said Hitler was okay and Pol Pot was okay, you know, Idi Amin was okay, where would we be, you know? Sometimes you have to draw a line in the sand and say, that's wrong and this is right, and so be it. But you've probably just asked the most complicated question that could be asked. How about one more question, and then, again, I'll be happy to meet you out in the lobby and talk to you one-on-one and sign some books. Yes?
So last question. How do you select the essays that you end up broadcasting?
And I somehow thought I would get through the night without answering that question, because that's the one question that always gets asked. It has evolved over the years. When we were first doing this project, we had major grants that covered a fairly elaborate operation. And we had a staff of 4 people who did nothing but read this I Believe essays. And they had a whole sort of assembly line ritual, not ritual, but a process. These 2 people would read incoming essays and decide whether they had something to them. Not necessarily perfectly written, but that there was something moving, inspiring, interesting, different, whatever the criterion might be for that person on that day. And if they thought they were worth someone else reading, they would pass them up the food chain to the next person. And that next editor is now looking at a smaller group of essays. And if they agreed that, yeah, this essay has something to it, they would pass it up to the next one. And then once that group of 4 people had sort of consensus on something, then they would pass it up to us who were kind of the senior editors in charge of our radio series. And this is always about radio to start with. It was all about making good radio. And making good radio means we have to be aware of what did we air last week and 2 weeks ago. So for instance, sometimes we had a phenomenal essay that came over the transom for us that was written, unfortunately, about a topic that we just aired a few weeks ago. And we knew that NPR would never go for too many essays on the same subject or too many essays from the same perspective. So the way we've often looked at this as sort of a multi-level matrix where we're constantly aware of, have we recently broadcast something about that topic or from that perspective? We try to have geographic variety, so they're not all essays from Ohio, or all essays from nurses, or all essays about grief. So a lot of times those are layers of things we're concerned about, and then the overarching issue, for those of you who remember back to the War Room and the documentary about the Clinton candidacy in 1992, and the slogan was, "It's the economy, stupid." And our shorthand slogan is, "It's the essays." We try not to say stupid. In other words, if it's a great essay, it trumps everything. And so be it that it's sort of reminiscent of something we did 6 weeks ago or 6 months ago. So it's an intangible thing. It's entirely subjective. When our first book, we were getting ready to publish our first book, the head of the publishing house said, "What I love about your project is that this group of essays is like a box of chocolates," and not in the Forrest Gumpian sense, in the sense of a Whitman sampler. Some people like the nuts, some people like the caramels, some people like the nougat. Rarely will people agree on the same thing, right? And he said, you're going to find some people who pick 12 essays in this book that they absolutely love, and there's going to be another group of people that those were the 12 essays they absolutely hated. But the beauty is everybody will find a dozen essays that they really like. And that's been my experience with all of these books that we've done. It's never the same essays that everybody likes, with a few exceptions. That's probably a good place to stop. I really appreciate you all sticking it out till the end here, and hope you've enjoyed the evening. And again, I'm going to be out in the lobby for any of you who have books or that you want to sign, then I'll be happy to talk to you one-on-one. Thank you so much for having me.